All right.
We're
When you talk about those guys, what about
Yes, sir.
these guys right here? That's right.
what's up, Nick?
What's going on, Alex? Alex Hardy and Nick Ferguson here. All right, Alex, Thursday night football, right? We get the reigning Super Bowl champs coming off the loss to my Denver Broncos, hoping
That's right.
that they can do something in the Meadowlands against Jackson Dart and the rookie sensation Kam Skadovo. But it didn't happen that way, Alex.
No, we came in off of our previous episode Tuesday recapping week 5, which if you missed, you could get our insights looking ahead to week 6, which we'll do more of for sure. I expected, look, it's a division battle. The NFC East is always a struggle. But I think what my comment was, hey, the reigning Super Bowl champs have 2 of 3 against the Giants. Now's the time to get right. A good Giants pass rush. Let's see how that Eagles offensive line holds up. It did not. Jalen Hurts made mistakes, but yes, let's start with the positives and Kam Skadovo and that coming out party in prime time for those G-men.
Yeah, that was something that I did not anticipate. And usually when defensive rivals or division rivals, face off one another, the idea is that you throw out the records. And I didn't think that would be the case for this game. I thought, like you said last week, this would be a get-right game for the Eagles, but it proved to be a get-wrong game for Jalen Hurts, man. I don't know what happened because as I started to look at the stat sheet, I was like, wait a minute, I'm seeing something a little familiar, and what the hell's going on? How did Jackson Dart outrush Saquon Barkley? How? How does that happen?
Well, so it's more of an indictment, obviously, on Saquon. I think they both came in at 58 rushing yards. But the issue with Jackson Dart, I expected the rushing to be there, right? As a rookie quarterback making his third start, and especially how we saw him last week against the Saints, the game moves very quickly for a young rookie quarterback like that, doesn't it, Nick? Where if he doesn't see his first, maybe second read, or if you get to, third down, he just wants to take off and go without necessarily making his full progression. But it was effective against this Eagles defense that was without Jalen Carter. But honestly, that rushing attack, it looked to me that the Giants were attacking the Eagles' edges, just overpowering them. And I mentioned it, the addition of Andrew Thomas coming back was just the shot in the arm that this team needed.
Yeah, so here's a couple of questions that I have. Now that the Giants have beaten the Eagles, they've beaten the Chargers, right? What does this say about, or does it say anything about the Broncos win over these same Eagles a week ago, right? And then understanding this, right after Broncos come back from London, guess who is that week's opponent? It's none other than Jackson Dart and the New York Giants. And oh, by the way, I must say, it is Alumni Weekend on October 19th. And you don't want to lose that. But you tell me, Alex, does it change the perception of what the Broncos did last week against these same Eagles?
Okay, let's get into your Broncos, and we can move to the rest of week 6, knowing that clearly this Eagles team was exploited in ways that I think got much worse, obviously, from the Denver game. Brian Daboll and that team really must have gleaned some things that worked for Denver, and they were able to kind of go full throttle and really take advantage. But a lot of it, too, were the mistakes. Like, the Eagles don't make these kinds of mistakes that they did. I think they had 2 turnovers, including just an awful Jalen Hurts pick, basically the 2-yard line that the Giants were able to take back. They didn't make as many mistakes against the Denver Broncos, and it was a heavily penalized game a week ago as well. I mean, look, the Broncos win is valuable, and my perception of them isn't necessarily unchanged. Although I will admit, if they don't beat those Eagles, their only wins against the year would be against Cincinnati and Tennessee. So having a big boy win on the schedule, and their only big boy win on the schedule, because let's be honest, the Jets in London, not a big boy win. Even the Giants, when they come back, maybe now it's a big boy win. But really, until they get through the teeth of the AFC West, which isn't until the second half of the season, I don't really quite. I put a lot of stock into it, but I'm not going to vault Denver just because of how the Eagles necessarily played tonight. Do you want to start in London, since that'll be 6:30 in the morning my time, which is kind of like right in sync of when my oldest is waking up. So we'll be getting football on in our jammies. And look, The the
Before
only
we
team
get
that
to
could
that,
have played the team that could have played worse than Philly tonight was the New York Jets every week.
yeah, but before we get to that, I got another question for you.
Yes, sir.
Now, I know, like after the loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in the first Super Bowl, there was this mass exodus by Jeffrey Lurie and the Eagles management because they were trying to duplicate something we've seen before and the Patriot way, right? You get rid
Yes.
of players 2 or 3 years before you feel as though they're past their prime. And that continued from 2024 to 2025. Do you think basically using that philosophy, trying to think in futures, have helped hurt the Eagles in the present with so many of their defensive players, starters and role players, now gone from Vic Fangio's defense?
I mean, that's a part of it. I didn't necessarily see, like, the offense just made too many mistakes and put way too much pressure on that defense. Like, without Jalen Carter, and he didn't leave, he was just injured, it's a huge loss. We're seeing CJ Gardner-Johnson pop up in Baltimore because he said his quote was, "It's the only place left that'll take me." You're not going to get that philosophy right every single time, former Eagles that are thriving elsewhere. But yeah, the teeth of the defense, like they made a premium and a priority for their starters, but you lose that critical depth, which you need on the defensive line, which the Giants have built through the draft, just first round pick after first round pick after first round pick on elite pass rushers that really sped up Jalen Hurts. And I said this as a rookie like Jackson Dart, but really sped up Jalen Hurts and made life very, very difficult for him. So the defense certainly has its flaws, but what really shocked me, and I wasn't trying to bail out of the game. I think the biggest thing for me was just Landon Dickinson played a much bigger role on the interior of that offensive line than I kind of expected. We talk about Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata and how those tackles have been, but just without being able to run through the middle of that offensive line, the Eagles offense just is not, like, it is in serious trouble. Let alone, the inaccuracies Jalen Hurts has passing downfield. So I don't necessarily know about the Eagles. Like, they, obviously are still in first place in the NFC East. They were able to stack a couple of good wins going into the season and now sitting 4-2. They've got a really tough matchup going to Minnesota. And look, like we talked about it before, they're having trouble against the Giants pass rush. They certainly will have the same against the Minnesota Vikings. So your guess is as good as mine, but I mean, we got to feel pretty good about the NFC East now that we kind of see them cannibalizing each other, with the Commanders beating the Chargers and the Chargers beating the Giants and the Giants beating the Eagles, and it'll come to a head as everything kind of progresses. Do you want to go to London? Do you want to hop overseas, or is there anything else that sticks out to you when we open up the rest of Week 6? As we preview like the first third of the season, pretty much out of the way.
Well, let's go over to jolly old England, if you will.
Okay. So, look, in your time, prior to being a Bronco, you played in Europe. We don't necessarily need to get into the adjustment or things like that, but I do recall it obviously making for a very different game than if teams were playing at home. We certainly saw that with Minnesota and Cleveland last week. Is the fact that we're on neutral soil kind of more beneficial to the Jets than it is Denver?
No, it doesn't. Now, because, I mean, the Jets need this getaway. They needed to get away from New York City and everything else. And with the Giants, once again, outshining them and being the big brother, it's only going to make things worse for the New York Jets. So a change of scenery, as they say, does a body good. And the Jets are hoping that they can catch the Denver Broncos living high off the hog and still celebrating the game that was the week prior and steal the game. Now, I will say this. We've seen the Jets in the fourth quarter in what we call garbage minutes start to put up points. Now, the biggest issue for me is Breece Hall, the running back, because the Broncos have traditionally had issues with him since he's been a member of the New York Jets. So we'll see how that plays out. But for me, that defensive line is still somewhat of an issue. And if I am Sean Payton, based on what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, I am going to go after Sauce Gardner. Now, Sauce Gardner, the last time he was here in Denver, got away with one, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
remember.
I think was it Eric Davis? I don't know. I can't remember exactly who was on the call that day. You could clearly see Sauce Gardner pull Cortland Sutton down by the nape of his jersey, and they were still talking about, yes, look at that great coverage by Sauce Gardner. I'm like,
yeah, you know what? I think
what
that's
the
your guy,
hell?
Charles Davis. I think that's
Yeah,
your guy, Charles
Charles
Davis.
Davis. I was like, come on, Charles. What are we talking about?
So talk about the familiarity, right? I mean, obviously you're in Denver. You cover Sean Payton on a daily. I mean, Aaron Glenn finished his career in New Orleans and then was a defensive backs coach, really starting his coaching career under Sean Payton. So the relationship between a former coach or a current coach and his former player, former assistant coach, what kind of philosophy do you think that has as, the meeting of the minds present themselves before the game is actually played?
Well, it's a nice little chess match because this is I guess the good and the bad of coaching with guys that you're coaching against. You know them, they know you.
Yeah,
So Sean knows AG from a player standpoint. They all have, just like myself, we have experience being with Bill Parcells, and it's a certain way that things go. And both of those guys are competitive. They
that's
have
true too.
I'll put it as mildly as I can. They have strong attitudes. So you can shape that however you want to shape it, but they want to win. They want to beat one another. And for Aaron Glenn, trending in the direction of making Jets history as far as not winning any games and
Yeah.
being an offer, he would
Zero
love,
turnovers too.
yes, he would love nothing more than to leave London flying back. We saw him once they got the block and the Tampa Bay game, how he was dancing and grooving. He wants to dance and groove on the way back from the pond all the way to New York, and beating Sean Payton right after they beat the Eagles will kind of give him a trump card, not just over Sean, but over the Giants who beat the Eagles tonight.
Well, we saw this a week ago in Philadelphia. The Broncos, I think it was punted like almost, I think it was 7 of their first 8 drives. And then they reeled off that fourth quarter comeback against Philly. It'll be different because I expect them to be playing with a lead. And, right on that play sheet, run the damn ball if the Broncos do get.
You saw it. You saw it.
Yeah, that's right. Like that's Sean Payton has to remind himself that they need to burn clock, they need run, and eh, I really do hope that they can keep themselves balanced and help Bo Nix, save him from himself, not try to create some of the heroic throws that worked a year ago, but somehow, throwing across your body, across the field, not quite as accurate as he was this time a year ago. But I mean, 0-6. That'd be a long flight back from London. And again, there's a huge difference being 4-2 versus 3-3. So both teams certainly have a ton at stake as far as London is concerned. And then you've got other matchups, littered throughout the weekend that, look, we got a good divisional matchup tonight. We have great divisional matchups over the weekend. Cleveland and Pittsburgh is a fun one. The 1-4 Browns start number 2 for Dylan Gabriel. Meanwhile, you have TJ Watt and Myles Garrett facing off on opposing teams, which could make things really exciting. Look, the NFC East is scratch and claw, and yet we still had a 17-point victory by the Giants. I don't even know if both teams will combine for 17 points in Pittsburgh this Sunday.
Well, you know what? Here's a game that I am really intrigued by, and it's because of a recent trade this week. Joe Flacco facing off in his first game.
Yeah, I did want to get to the Bengals, which we will.
Versus the Green Bay Packers. I still don't understand that trade. I don't see how the management with the Bengals figured as though this was the move that they were going to make. And when you think about the Cincinnati Bengals and you think about the Cleveland Browns, are they not the same type of organization? And the reason I say that because, Paul Brown started the Cleveland Browns, and now the Cincinnati Bengals are owned by the Brown family.
The Brown family.
So it's like they have the same mindset, and nothing has changed. And thank goodness for Joe Burrow, but I feel sorry for that dude that he's just with that particular organization. The fact that you're bringing in Joe in a short week and he is going to now start, and you bring in Joe, you bench, Jake Browning, and you cut Brett Rippon, who was your backup quarterback. You didn't even give him a chance at all. And you got a statue as quarterback in Joe Flacco against, you talk about Micah Parsons. If I'm Parsons, I'm licking my chops.
Well, look, Flacco did win that game for Cleveland against
Oh,
Green Bay in
he
week
didn't
3.
win that game, Alex. It was a blocked
By
field goal.
himself. He rushed Jordan Love. I understand what that Packers defense did, and the Bengals defense is not even in the same stratosphere as Green Bay. But I hated the trade just simply from the standpoint that when you pay 3 players as much as you're paying them, you do not trade away draft capital. You
Thank
do not
you.
trade
Thank
down
you.
roughly 50 spots. It was the Lions' 6th round pick and their own 5th rounder. So the Bengals are not very good. The Lions are very good. There are compensatory picks in between. I think it's, I'm just sort of guessing here, anywhere between 40 to 50 draft spots they're moving down for the services of one Joe Flacco. And for the only team that made 0 draft day trades in the 2025 April NFL draft, draft picks are at a premium for no team greater than the Cincinnati Bengals. So to cheapen or lessen one of your draft picks, and again, you can get gems in the 6th round just as you can in the 5th, but it just, look, they were going to take their lumps with Jake Browning, but frankly, they could have just waited, and I'm pretty sure after watching Brian Daboll view those 2 snaps from Russell Wilson, he's going to be cut by tomorrow. I mean, that's the one thing that I failed to mention from this game that was hysterical. Jackson Dart goes in the blue tent. By 2nd down, Brian Daboll is in there with his quarterback. He missed
Yes.
the play on the field because he doesn't want to watch Russell Wilson, and then Russell almost takes a delay game, throws it in the dirt. But yeah, he would have been great as the Bengals quarterback. So I do not feel as optimistic for Cincinnati against Green Bay, even with Joe Flacco. But I mean, Jamar Chase was up in the podium today saying he appreciated it. This is just, it was untenable for the guys that they paid to try to catch balls from Jake Browning. So look, he's a statue. He's going to look to dump the ball out quickly. If he does, Jamar Chase is one of the best creators with the ball in his hands. So I guess we'll see how it happens. And then the rest of week 6, the NFC North, because we talked about Green Bay, it's very intriguing with Minnesota off this week after coming from London. And I believe Chicago is back in action on Monday Night Football. So we'll talk about that game at length when we have the meeting of the former 2024 first overall pick and Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, the 2nd overall pick. So the NFC North, I think we're going to spend a lot more time on for Monday. But the best game in the NFC this week is the 4-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the 4-1 San Francisco 49ers.
And you know what? Here's something interesting about that because, I mean, there are coaches I know on both sides of the ball. Todd Bowles, my former DB coach, head coach. Thomas McGahee, I played with, and he actually coached me. Kevin Ross, who is the DB coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, there is so many coaches on that side for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And also the one thing that's phenomenal for me, when I look at Kyle Shanahan, and, he gets a negative rap as far as being a coach who gets all the way there but can't finish. And I told someone this on social media, what do you think would happen when you ask coaches around the league? There are a lot of coaches that would give their right testicle to even experience anything that he has experienced thus far because he's got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G. Then he went back again with Mr. Irrelevant. Then he missed 1 year because Mr. Irrelevant got injured and they had to run CMC as a quarterback. So there's not a coach in today's game right now over the past 4 or 5 years that have had to endure the number of injuries that Kyle Shanahan has endured, but he still finds a way to get things done.
I am just as impressed as you are, Nick. And look, I'm just as impressed as how competitive they've been. Look, the injuries that they've had are one thing, and Mac Jones is set to start his 4th game of the year, but it's even the small stuff. They finally cut their kicker and got improvement from Eddie Pinheiro, and the injuries, kind of speak for themselves, right? It was Mac Jones throwing to Kendrick Bourne, and yet here they are pulling out wins, like they did a week ago. So really, Tampa Bay, if it weren't for San Francisco, we would talk about their injuries as well. Tristan Wirfs finally back in the rotation. We get Chris Godwin after he missed the first month of the season. Mike Evans looks as if he's still a week or so away, and they just keep chugging along. So it's the foundation and the organizational success. And frankly, I might as well be calling you Nick, Sean McVay, Ferguson, because all of these guys that you've had relationships with seem to be succeeding in the National Football League. Just like if you happen to shake Sean McVay's hand once in 2021, all of a sudden you'd be a head coach by 2023. So, look, Nick, I understand the impact that you've had in the NFL as a player and certainly as a kingmaker as well. So,
Well,
I,
well,
I,
I wouldn't say a keen maker, but I will say maybe I need to go shake Sean McVay's hand.
oh my God, just I'm trying to think of it like the Midas touch, like you guys would both turn to gold. Just so good for how successful you are. One more in the NFC West. Speaking of, Seattle makes that cross country flight to go to Jacksonville. The last time you saw us on Monday, we talked about those Jacksonville Jaguars pulling out the gutty, gross victory on Monday Night Football. And now Michael McDonald's defense, I think probably one of their biggest tests of the year back to back after how things were with Tampa a week ago. They got absolutely torched, but Jacksonville is still, I made it very clear what my criticisms are of them. They're still very disorganized. Travis Hunter does not understand where to line up on the football field. And for the action that he gets as a corner, he was still off the field for the Chiefs' final drive. So a work in progress for sure, but a good measuring stick, I think. And look, it's a 4-1 team versus a 3-2 team. Seattle better on the road, 2-0 when they're away from the friendly confines compared to 1-1 at home. Sorry,
And
one
I'll
and
say
two,
this,
1-2 at home.
yeah, if Jacksonville is able to book 2 back-to-back wins like this together, then it's going to start changing the narrative in the AFC South as far as maybe everyone's saying that the Texans, not the Texans, but excuse me, but Daniel Jones and the Colts is their
Yeah.
divisional win. It makes it now a 3-horse race. And for me, I like that. I like to see competition within a division because now it makes every team better, but also it makes the league as a whole better. And just think about how many years that Jacksonville has been in the toilet and people have started to say negative things about Trevor Lawrence, but the performance that he had, the falling on the ground, getting up, and he was the game-winning touchdown for that team. So I know his confidence is out of the roof, but also for their rookie head coach. If he can go and win this game, he would be able to say, well, he beat San Francisco 49ers, he beat Kansas City, and he beat the Seattle Seahawks. Usually you don't get that type of production from a head coach in his first year.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but they had an interesting trade. Like we mentioned, Joe Flacco for Cleveland. They weren't done. It was their third trade in the last week, swapping Greg Newsome for Tyson Campbell. I think for me, the fact that they locked up Greg Newsome to a lucrative contract extension last year, part of it was getting out of the money. But do you have any thoughts on, again, they did swap draft capital, but it was a legit corner for corner. It's rare that you see guys in the same position essentially swap for one another.
Well, it's rare that you see that, but once again, it's just like, okay, well, one team seems to be trending in one direction. They are looking forward to 2026. And the other team is saying, okay, well, we look like we can win now. So in order for us to put ourselves in that echelon or even at that front door, we need to make sure we have the right pieces to be able to do it. So we'll see how this trade actually pans out. But when you're traded from a team that's not doing well to a team that is just kind of experienced a great victory, to me, you're all smiles like Happy Meals.
Look, and Jacksonville's pass rush was no joke. Like that was the calling card for Cleveland, is that their corners, had a little bit more stability given how quickly opposing quarterbacks would get the ball out. I think the stats, Greg Newsome lined up against Justin Jefferson for 12 plays in London a week ago. 3 targets, allowed 2 completions for 33 yards. Pretty modest, like good production, to limit Justin Jefferson in that way. So we'll see what he can kind of affect, knowing that, look, that takes a lot less pressure, or it takes pressure off of Travis Hunter because he's not starting, and they essentially got a more, a Pro Bowl caliber corner in Newsome
Well,
to play
see,
the outside.
remember before the draft, the question was, will Travis Hunter play both sides, right? Or would he be favor one more than the other? With the acquisition of Newsome, now, just like you said, we can see Travis becoming more of a wide receiver from here on out, while Newsome can actually hold down the corner spot. And oh, by the way, remember once upon a time we used to call Jacksonville by Saxonville.
Sure.
They be getting back to that in Liam Cohen's first year. Oh my God. That would be ridiculous. We would never stop hearing the ending of Duval.
Duval, right. The wrong emphasis. Like, if Liam Cohen keeps winning, maybe we've been wrong this whole time. You're supposed to say it the way he does and not Duval.
So, Duval.
That's right. That's going to stick. You've got it. Like, if they're 5-1, it's got to stick. Let's see. Two teams I'd never need to talk about ever again. We've got Tennessee going to Vegas.
Yeah, that's going to be a dog of a game.
All right, what's next? We've got Sunday night, Detroit going to Kansas City. It was odd to me. Again, we did this a week ago. I believe it was with Kansas City and Jacksonville, but the Chiefs are favorites at home. Just my eye test would tell me Detroit has been the better team, the better offense, but they do have significant issues on the defensive end. Meanwhile, Kansas City's last game before Rashee Rice is eligible to come back. How do you see things playing out in prime time at Arrowhead?
This one could end up being somewhat of a shootout, because when we look
Wouldn't
at,
that be nice?
I mean, that would be great. And think about it. If I'm not mistaken, let's go back in the Wayback Machine. Remember, Kansas City played I think it was the Rams. And
Yep. You're doing the Thursday night game? Jared Goff and Patty Mahomes?
Yes. It was like a C-note. I mean, it was like 100 points, right? Could we, in fact, see that same game? Because we could talk about Detroit defense, and they're having issues in their back end with two of their corners being on IR. So the Kansas City Chiefs are going to take advantage of that. But when you look at the wide receiver the options for Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions, not to mention a two-headed monster at the running back position, where the Kansas City Chiefs still can't run the freaking ball, especially with your quarterback being your leading rusher from the last game against Jacksonville.
Yes. To clarify, the 2018 Rams-Chiefs matchup on Thursday night, it was 105 total points. And let's play a game. How many combined yards and touchdowns from Mahomes and Jared Goff that night?
Combined, I would say, 8?
91 yards passing and 10 touchdowns. Is that good?
Well, that's good for the NFL as far as selling the game. But if you are a defensive person like me, you absolutely hate it, right? You're throwing up. You're sick to your stomach.
Yep. And it's funny, too, because back then, the Chiefs' rushing game, led by Kareem Hunt, was effective, but they still threw the ball almost 50 times, ran it 20 times. We're not going to have that kind of high-octane offense as long as Patrick Mahomes remains the leading rusher for this team. Again, because it's Jared Goff, because it's Patrick Mahomes, this is going to play out, and it's going to be 105 points. But without a quality rushing game, it could be more like Detroit Lions 75, Kansas City Chiefs 30.
You know what? I don't know about that, because, well, we need the Chiefs to lose here in Broncos country.
I'm with you. The Lions by 45 points.
Well, you know what? John Morton has done a great job out there in Detroit, because everyone was wondering what this offense was going to look like with both their defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, leaving and Ben Johnson going to Chicago. And it seemed like they just picked up where they left off, and they're scoring.
Yeah. Well, it's actually even better. This was the stat that surprised me. They've scored the most points and have the most touchdowns through the first 5 games in franchise history. So this is, as much as we want to give credit to Ben Johnson, it's Morton and it's Dan Campbell, frankly, who was a play caller in his own right.
Well, there it is. And Detroit, they're going to continue to push that blue collar attitude, and hopefully they can get it done in Kansas City.
He's Nick Ferguson. I'm Alex Hardy. Some quick hits throughout Week 6 in the National Football League. Not every game needs to be mentioned. Even the games we do mention, looking at you, Tennessee, Vegas, doesn't need to be mentioned. So you can follow us throughout the NFL season. We'll be back Sunday, Monday. I haven't decided which yet. We'll see, it's an early morning for those Denver Broncos. So if you really, if we're going from 6:30 and we come back Sunday Night Football, maybe Monday's best. We'll see how Nick handles things, because, again, so emotionally divided between his Denver Broncos and his guy, Aaron Glenn, who could be the worst Jets coach in franchise history, which is kind of saying a lot.
Don't say that.
The numbers don't lie. They don't lie. And if you think I do, Nick Ferguson will not lie when we come back on the pod here. So you can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Nick at Nick Ferguson _25. He's breaking down tape. He is answering any of your questions for your Denver Broncos or any team that you follow. So until next time, Nick, what do you have to say to the people?
Make sure you always cook your steak medium.
Nick, that's something you handle on your show, but I'll bite. I'll bite into that medium steak. I eat my steak medium. Here's the thing. I've been served a rare, basically a tartare steak, right? But like if I didn't make it and I'm not in position or in control, like I've just got to swallow it. Like I'm not gonna.
No, you don't.
I have enough manners to not correct somebody or say like, no, you cooked it wrong. I'm just gonna eat it. I eat it the way that they do. But whenever you go out to a restaurant, I always order it medium because like you cannot order a rare steak out at a restaurant, even a nice one, because like if I'm in control or I trust somebody cooking it, again, doesn't make sense. A professional chef versus like, somebody in the family. Like I'm more comfortable eating it rare if I was at home, but I do prefer it medium. So I'm with you there.
Okay. First of all, let me bring you into my house. And I'm going to take you in the Wayback Machine yet again.
Okay. Twice now.
Growing up in
Miami.
Miami. Yes.
Strap in.
Scott Projects. No, we're not. Right? If you want to prepare that, that's not the way that I'm going to eat it. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to put that cow back on the grill to cook it a little more. It's no disrespect, but and when I was a kid growing up, it was like I didn't have to eat it, right? I mean, my grandmother and my mom would have you sit there until you have to eat it, but it's like, hey, man, we live in America. It's a free country. It's free speech, right? And I'm free to eat what I want to eat. And right now, I don't want to eat that. It is too rare. Tartare? What is tartare? Is that like sauce you spread on a bread? What is that?
The tartare is like basically raw, but if you train your stomach, I guess you could do it. Here's the thing, Nick. I know your kids listen to this podcast and they don't miss an episode. So when they hear you spouting off like that and they're going to hit you with, it's a free country, I don't have to eat it, Dad, leave me alone. I just think like, my house, my rules. It's a democracy outside, but not in this house.
But wait a minute. See, I got an easy fix for that, right? Look, if you don't want to eat it, it's a free country, right? Just don't tell the people I didn't feed you. Right? I put food in front of you. You just didn't eat it. Right? That's not my fault. My job is to provide room and board, food, and keep the lights on. Right? I can present it. You don't eat it. That's on you.
We're not going to keep the lights on here anymore. You can catch us after week 6 here in the National Football League. Peace.